So my question to the Minister is if her attention has been drawn to the very serious concerns of animal welfare groups in relation to the so-called coursing trials, and if you will reconsider the issuing of licences.
Yeah, my department issued the Irish. Thank you for your question, Deputy. My department issued the Irish Coursing Club with licences in August 2018 on behalf of its affiliated clubs to capture and tag hares for the 2018-19 coursing season. And these licences included conditions relating to the reporting of coursing trials. And up to recently, the organisation and monitoring of these trials has not been included in the licences by my department to the Irish Coursing Club and its affiliated clubs. However, in light of the concerns expressed, a revised licence was issued to the ICC in October 2017 for the then 2017-2018 season, with additional conditions to strengthen the regulation of trials. And these conditions for trials are also included in the licence issued to the Irish Coursing Club for the current coursing season. And it is now a condition that only one dog, as opposed to two, can be used in trials, and that vets are required to be present. And in addition, my department is to be notified in advance, which was not done previously, and reports of all trials are to be submitted to my department. And those reports and any monitoring undertaken by the National Parks and Wildlife Service will also be taken into account in the consideration of the renewal of licences. And where resources allow, local National Parks and Wildlife Service conservation rangers and other staff attend coursing meetings to conduct on-the-spot checks and to monitor compliance with the licences issued to the Irish Coursing Club and its affiliated clubs. And my department monitored 6 of these trials during the previous 2017-18 season, given that these trials had not been monitored previously. And these reports are available on the website of the National Parks and Wildlife Service of my department. And for the current coursing season, and taking account of staffing constraints within my department, it has concentrated its efforts on monitoring regular coursing meetings, and to date has monitored 32 coursing meetings compared to a total of 35 during the previous season. And I would intend that some trials will be monitored before the end of the current coursing season at the end of February.
The remainder will be on the official report.
Thank you.
Deputy O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Minister, and there is some positive aspects to your reply. My question, and I want to stress the word so-called trials, because condition 23 of the licence is that it gives an opportunity to familiarise hares with the most direct route for escape, and also that there wouldn't be more than one dog at any particular trial run. Now, somebody who rang up in order to book their dog in for one of these trial runs was told that the hares had been, and I quote, well trained. So that's indicating to me that any of the hares who had escaped, and they're supposed to have escaped back into captivity, are being used and are being kept again in captivity to be used again. So I stress the point that these trials are not for the benefit of the hare in order to give them a more level playing field, as it were, when it comes to escaping, but this is for the benefit of the greyhounds, so that they will be able to chase the hare better, and I use that word very minimally. And again, it's highlighting, and even though you gave the report about how the coursing clubs and the events are monitored, it just shows how you can't really regulate this particular industry. And there is time, with growing opposition to coursing, that there is a ban on this. And I don't believe, Minister, that you support issues where animals are badly treated and tortured.
There's 1 minute.
We wouldn't support, Deputy, any type of sport or hobby or whatever you want to call it that would in any way prejudice the welfare of an animal. And the concerns of the animal welfare groups relate to the fact that they don't consider that the trials are organised to familiarise hares with the most direct route to the escape, as you said, as per condition 23. And it is the Department's understanding that in order to familiarise hares with the layout of the coursing field and the location of the escape in advance of coursing meetings, that hares in the hare park, and this is the enclosure where they are kept prior to the start of the coursing meeting, will have access for some time to the coursing field. And the specific inclusion by the Department of trials in the licence issued to the Irish Coursing Club since the 2017-18 season made it a condition that the primary purpose of trials was to train hares for the regular coursing meetings, and giving staffing constraints within the National Parks and Wildlife Service, the Department has concentrated its efforts on monitoring regular coursing meetings. So we've monitored 32 to date.
And I'll go back to on the monitoring of the actual coursing events. And through an FOI which was received, it was being found out that there was some conflict of evidence between the evidence given by the vets who were hired by the Irish Coursing Club and the rangers from the National Parks and Wildlife Services. Now, this divergence in the evidence is being used by the Irish Coursing Club as a reason to ignore the ranger reports and not make the ranger reports available. So surely instead it's grounds for the Department of Agriculture to have their vets at these particular meetings so that the evidence can be collected there. Now, I know that's not your department, Minister, but this is part of the problem when it comes to animal welfare issues, that it falls between several departments. And I do think there could be a conversation between yourself and the Minister for Agriculture on how the vets from the Department of Agriculture could be used, and there would be no conflict of interest there if, as I've pointed out, the reports from the National Park and Wildlife Service rangers are going to be ignored.
I get the final response from the Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. Yeah, I appreciate the point that you've raised. Certainly we can have a conversation with the Department of Agriculture in relation to any vets that they can provide. It is important that, and paramount importance, that we keep the welfare of the hares of our primary concern, and indeed the dogs as well. It's important to say that under the EU Habitats Directive as well, that they have found that the Irish hare is widespread and common in Ireland, which is good to report, and that none of the identified threats, such as the changing practices, are considered likely to impact on its conservation status in the foreseeable future. And the future prospects of the hare they deemed favourable. So that can only be a good thing, but it is important that we monitor the trials, and the number of rangers dropped to 60 from 72 at the end of 2018 owing to some retirements, promotions and exits. But the monitoring of these meetings allow the National Parks and Wildlife Service to be present for the release of hares after coursing, which would not be the case with trials. And it's also important to note that 99.3% of hares are put back into the wild after coursing events, which is quite a high statistic.
Concludes priority questions.